Yo, hey, this shit easy, nigga. Hey, all I'm talking about, nigga, I'm still out here trying to get it.
Contender Regime Boxing checking back in with y'all, man. What's happening? Errol the Truth Spence Jr. versus Danny Swift Garcia is finally here this Saturday coming up, man, December 5th on Fox pay-per-view at Cowboy Stadium here in the DFW. And this is a huge fight, man. This is a huge fight for a lot of different reasons. And we're going to break that down. We're going to get into, what happens if Errol Spence Jr. wins? What happens if Danny Garcia wins? There's a lot on the line in this fight, man. You got Errol Spence Jr. On his third consecutive pay-per-view outing. First two pay-per-views were very successful. And you got to look at the climate of pay-per-view and boxing. And, you can't really compare it to what Mayweather was doing. A lot of people get caught up in, Mayweather doing something that was unprecedented with breaking the pay-per-view record time after time after time, just continuing to break his own record, doing ridiculous and unprecedented numbers. That's great and all, but I mean, nobody's doing that shit like on a consistent basis. And you got to look at with Errol Spence, him being new to the pay-per-view scene, having your first two pay-per-views do upwards of 350,000 pay-per-view buys. The first one with Mikey Garcia and the second one with Sean Porter. Those are really, really good numbers. And if you can sustain that on a regular basis, he can fight on pay-per-view every time out and it'll be very lucrative. And I believe if he continues to, win and have success, those numbers will rise. And I think this fight here versus Danny Garcia will be the biggest one yet in terms of numbers and success. Errol Spence coming off of the accident. Everybody want to see what he looked like. Everybody want to see, is Errol Spence still the same? And then not only that, just fans in general. You have the pandemic that's been going on. So that also put a halt to a lot of, sports and entertainment and things like that. So, you got just Errol Spence fan base and boxing fans in general just waiting to see Errol Spence. We've been wanting to see Errol Spence for the longest, and it's finally here. And then you got Danny Garcia, who is a very, very quality fighter with an incredible resume. And he has his own core fan base as well, because he done put in a lot of work in the game. And he's a very decorated fighter. You know what I'm saying? So Danny Garcia is definitely going to bring a lot of viewership to this fight as well. With all those things considered, this is going to be just a very, very big show. You know what I'm saying? This is going to be just a really good look for both guys. But let's talk about what happens if Danny Garcia wins this fight. If Danny Garcia wins this fight, man, this changes the trajectory of his career. This changes. I mean, he already has a pretty good resume, a pretty good career. And if he retired today, I mean, he would have to be Hall of Fame worthy. I mean, if you look at some of the guys that's in the Hall of Fame right now, you'd have to put Danny Garcia in that conversation. But this right here will take him to another level. You instantly become, your star power rises tremendously. He's already known amongst the diehard boxing fans and the hardcore boxing fans. But this fight right here, if he's able to beat Errol Spence Jr., this puts him on a whole nother level as far as popularity and notoriety and just his status in the game. You instantly become a unified champion of the welterweight division. You become the number one fighter in the division. This also could open up more pay-per-view fights for Danny Garcia. And I think this would possibly lead to a huge fight versus Manny Pacquiao on pay-per-view. I think Manny Pacquiao and those guys, his team, they love the matchup versus Danny Garcia stylistically. And, after, Danny Garcia coming off of a huge win versus Errol Spence Jr., this makes him a great candidate for a Manny Pacquiao to unify the titles in a fight that Manny Pacquiao would feel like that he has a good chance of winning. Plus, it's gonna sell. You know what I'm saying? So even if it's not Manny Pacquiao, you can have a rematch with Sean Porter on pay-per-view, possibly a rematch with Keith Thurman, maybe even a Terrence Crawford fight. Or you could do a rematch with Errol Spence Jr. You know what I'm saying? So this definitely leads up, depending on how the fight goes, this definitely leads, to more opportunities for Danny Garcia His career, now he becomes the man again. He's on top, and definitely a top 10 pound for pound fighter if he's able to defeat Errol Spence Jr. And I know he had talks about going up to 154. So if he can go up to 154 and, continue to have some success up there as well, I mean, this opens up so many different doors and opportunities for Danny Garcia if he's able to win this fight. If Errol Spence Jr. wins this fight, Errol Spence Jr. continues to reign as the unified champion in the division. He continues to reign as the big fish, the man at 147, one of the top pay-per-view stars in the sport of boxing. He continues on to a possible Terrence Crawford fight, rematch with Sean Porter, maybe a Manny Pacquiao fight if he's up to it, which I don't think will ever happen. Maybe a Keith Thurman fight. He could possibly unify with Yordenis Ugas once they finally strip Manny Pacquiao of that WBA super title and let Ugas be the full-time champion, and Errol might unify with Ugas. There's infinite possibilities and opportunities for Errol Spence. If Errol Spence is able to be successful in this fight, he continues on his path towards undisputed and, moving up to 154 and just continuing having success, possibly a fight versus Canelo later on down the road. There's going to be a lot of different opportunities for Errol Spence Jr. if he can just continue to have success. With all that being said, man, now that we've gotten that out the way, we know what's at stake. We understand, what's on the line here. Let's talk about the prediction. I see this fight going possibly a few different ways. I'm gonna tell y'all the way that I'm predicting it to go, that I actually feel is gonna go. But I could see this fight happening a few different ways. There's infinite possibilities. But if Danny Garcia wants to win this fight, I believe he's gonna have to hurt Errol Spence. I believe he's gonna have to damage Errol Spence. He's gonna have to hurt him. He doesn't necessarily have to knock him out, but I think he's gonna have. If he doesn't knock him out, I think he's going to have to hurt him bad enough to where Errol really can't ever fully recover and he's not able to perform at optimal level, which will allow Danny Garcia to, pretty much dictate the pace, the range of the fight, the distance, and, all of that, which could allow him to pull out a decision victory in this fight. But I truly believe that if Danny Garcia is going to win this fight, he's going to have to stop. He's going to have to hurt Errol Spence, number one, but most likely he's going to have to stop Errol Spence. That's the one way that I see Danny Garcia winning this fight. Errol Spence Jr., he has multiple ways that he can win this fight. I can see Errol Spence Jr. going out there putting on a boxing masterclass, similar to how he fought Mikey Garcia. I can see him going in there and starting off boxing the first half of the fight and then taking a page out of Lamont Peterson versus Danny Garcia, where Lamont pushed forward in the second half of the fight and, really just start putting a beating on Danny Garcia. I could see that. I could see 12 rounds of just an accumulative beatdown from Errol Spence on Danny Garcia if Danny is just not able to land those counters while Errol is being first, because Danny gonna let Errol be first and Errol is gonna be first. It's just that, Danny gonna have to try to land those counters and, counter over the jab to the head, to the body. Gonna have to try to counter over that because Errol gonna be popping the jab a lot. I don't see Errol going to the body a whole lot in this fight, at least not in the first half, maybe in the second half of the fight if Danny starts to wither away a little bit, if he starts to fade, stamina starts to get low. I can see Errol starting to put down a body attack and press forward on Danny Garcia. But early on, I don't see Errol going to the body a lot. It's going to be too risky. Danny Garcia is too precise and too accurate of a counterpuncher, and his timing is too good for you to be standing in the pocket and standing at mid-range too damn long. You know what I'm saying? But I could see Errol just, putting a beating on Danny Garcia and possibly having the fight stopped in the 10th or the 11th round. Danny busts up real easy as far as, swelling around the eye, cuts and bloody nose and stuff like that. You see in the Mauricio Herrera fight, he was a little, busted up. He was busted up in the Lamont Peterson fight. He was busted up a little bit in the Zab Judah fight. You know what I'm saying? So he busted up real good, you know, and that might play a factor as far as a stoppage in this fight. But my official prediction, man, I'm going with Errol Spence Jr. by unanimous decision. I think this is, I really see this fight. I really see Errol Spence boxing very intelligently in this fight. I think he gonna box very smart, use the jab, establish the distance, you know, establish the range that he want to fight at. It's gonna be, you're gonna see Errol at long range in the first half of the fight, and you're gonna see Errol, you know, later on, maybe after round 8, start to try to, you know, press forward and just, you know, pound on Danny a little bit and see, you know, see if Danny fade a little bit and see if he can get him up out of there. But I think for the most part, you're going to see Errol Spence boxing, you know, giving Danny the pivots and the jab, you know, mixing it up and just really kind of feinting a lot, you know what I'm saying? Really just keeping Danny off his toes so he don't really know when to throw those looping counters. And I think Earl's going to make it real uncomfortable for Danny. The work rate is going to be a problem for Danny. Earl's output is going to be crazy. If you look at him right now, he's in phenomenal shape. He's probably in the best shape that I've ever seen Errol Spence. So I see Earl going in there and just, you know, boxing beautifully, putting on a masterclass. It's going to look very similar to the Mikey Garcia fight. The only difference is that I think there's more of a chance that Earl can stop Danny as opposed to stopping Mikey, because Danny is going to be more willing to open up and throw. And I think Mikey Garcia's defense is a lot more tighter than Danny Garcia. I think, you know, Mikey knows how to roll with those punches and shell up better than Danny does, you know. So I think Danny's going, even though Danny got a great chin, I think, you know, he's more likely to be stopped in the later rounds by Errol Spence Jr. But I really don't see a stoppage in this fight. I see Errol Spence. It's possible. It's possible. And if Errol is able to do that, that'll be a huge statement, you know. But even if he doesn't stop Danny, I think he can make a huge statement by putting on a beautiful performance, just furthermore showing his skill, showing that I'm not just some power puncher. I'm not just some, some brute strength fighter that just walk forward and throws a lot of punches. Errol Spence is a technical fighter, very, very calculated guy that puts mental and physical pressure on you with an accumulation of ass whooping, and he does it behind tactical and intelligent pressure. That's what he does. And he can box off the back foot too. You know what I'm saying? Errol Spence is a complete fighter. He's not this guy that a lot of people make him out to be. He is a complete fighter. And styles make fights, you know what I'm saying? So you're not going to stop everybody. And Errol Spence is not a fucking knockout artist. That's not what he is. Yeah, he stopped a lot of guys, but that's not all that he does. You know what I'm saying? So I see Errol Spence just putting on a very, very, very just a masterful performance. I'm looking at like 8 rounds to 4, maybe 9 rounds to 3. I can even see 10 rounds to 2. I think it's gonna get that, it's gonna get that crazy in there as far as the skill. I think you're gonna see, the level of skill being on display, and I think Earl gonna separate himself from Danny Garcia as far as the level of skill. I think that's gonna be apparent by round 7. I think you're gonna see like, this dude Errol Spence, Danny Garcia don't belong in the ring with him as far as skill. You're gonna see that. You know what I'm saying? Just stylistically, I think he gonna separate himself in the skills department. But it all depends on how Earl chooses to fight this fight. But that's what I see. Unanimous decision by Errol Spence Jr. I'm saying 9 rounds to 3. 8 to 4, possibly 10-2. And don't be surprised if Earl stop him late. If there is a stoppage, I see Earl stopping Danny Garcia possibly 10th round, 11th round, maybe even the 12th round. And it'll probably have to be the corner throwing in the towel. Maybe the doctor stop it because he been busted up too much behind that jab, maybe an eye closed or something like that. You know, we just seen Daniel Dubois he just took a knee because his shit got swole up from the jab. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I see it, man. Y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments, how y'all see this fight. What is y'all official prediction? And I'm very excited and intrigued to see how y'all feel about this one, man. Y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments. Contender regime boxing. I'll holler at y'all boys, man.